The governor of all New Yorkers calls citizens who do not agree with him extremists and says they do not belong in New York. Extremists? It was Mr. Cuomo who forced passage of sweeping gun laws virtually overnight, with no public hearings and no public comment allowed. He did this through a device known as a message of necessity. Necessary to whom? Necessary to ensure only Mr. Cuomo's voice is heard? Afterwards, 4 good government groups criticized Mr. Cuomo for his scheme to exclude public participation. Common Cause, League of Women Voters, the New York Public Interest Research Group, and Citizens Union. In addition, diverse groups sued in opposition to Mr. Cuomo's so-called SAFE Act and filed friend of the court briefs against his middle-of-the-night legislation. These range from the New York State Sheriff's Association to the Pink Pistols, a group of gay and lesbian gun owners who support the Second Amendment. According to Mr. Cuomo, these folks don't belong in New York State. In fact, his dogmatic approach no longer has a place in New York. Mr. Cuomo is welcome to stay in New York, but not as governor. Defend the Empire State. Defend freedom. Vote November 4th to keep your guns. Change your governor.
Welcome to the Military Exchange Talk Show, and I am your host, Corporal Tim Thornton. I'm here tonight with Mr. Mike Bernard. He is a member of SCOPE, NRA, and New York State Rifle and Pistol Association. And Mike is here to tell us, in his own personal words, representing just himself and the rest of America on the upcoming election strategy to either register your guns or vote and get rid of our current governor. Mike, if you would.
Thanks very much. You know what's great about the soundtrack you just heard, which is based on a video? In addition to it being very well done, it's an example of the energy that is building as we roll toward the November 4th election. This is a completely independent production. It's done on a volunteer basis. The folks who did this donated time and talent. So you've just heard the 90-second audio. If you want to see the video, go to the website, NewYorkFreedomWatch.com. Now, as Tim said, my name is Mike Bernard. I'm a member of SCOPE's Ontario County chapter, that's Shooters Committee on Political Education. I'm also a former liberal who evolved to an independent, to paraphrase Mrs. Clinton. And I want to make a point of disclosure here. I belong to many organizations, as Tim stated, but my opinions are my opinions. When I endorse a candidate, I am speaking for myself and not any organization. The good news for listeners is that we can win on November 4th if we get everyone off the sidelines. Our goal should be keep your guns, change your governor, and his allies. And we'll talk about allies in a few minutes. And if you look at it, the numbers are on our side. But only if we get off our backsides, register to vote, and by the way, help friends and neighbors register and vote on November 4th. Yesterday morning, for example, I helped 2 individuals fill out voter registration forms. You know, sometimes folks' first reaction is, oh, it looks too complicated, too bureaucratic. It's simple, but think about helping friends and neighbors register. Because here's the key. We cannot depend on the kindness of strangers to get our freedom back. We have to do this ourselves. It's up to us. Now, with the numbers on our side, it's time for payback at the ballot box, okay? And if you think about the numbers, we have 15 million eligible voters in New York State. How many do you think actually vote out of the 15 million? It's less than 1/3. Think about that. We've got a small percentage of the total number of voters who control our political destiny and in effect our freedom. And so gun owners and folks who are tired of the corruption and the name calling in Albany cannot afford to be among the 2/3 who don't vote. Plus, there are 6 million gun owners in New York State. What does that mean? That means there's more gun owners than people who traditionally vote. If you look at the 2010 governor's election, 4.6 million people voted. Let's see, 4.6 million people who actually voted, 6 million gun owners. Do the arithmetic, okay? You want your vote to make a difference? How many times do you hear people say, oh, my vote doesn't matter? Your vote matters, and this is the year. Best of all, the more you know about Rob Astorino, who's the Republican candidate for governor, the more you like. What do we have here? We've got a county executive in Westchester County. And where's Westchester? Westchester's in downstate. It's right next door to New York City. We can win downstate. He's in his second term after being re-elected by a double-digit margin, 13-point margin, in a county with a 2-to-1 Democrat enrollment advantage. Said to be fluent in Spanish, he also captured most of the Latino vote in 2013. We've got assets, but we have to use them. If we can get everyone off the sidelines, victory should be a walk. If we get off our butts, register, and vote. No excuses, everyone votes. U.S. News and World Report said it well, and I'm quoting from them now. Astorino has the issues on his side, and Andrew Cuomo is even more out of touch than Mario Cuomo. Think about our other assets. Talk about diversity in the Big Ten. We've got a governor who calls us extremists and bigots. Yet we have an amazing array of allies, from law enforcement, New York State Sheriff's Association, to the Pink Pistols, which is a national organization of gay and lesbian gun owners who work with the NRA, who support the Second Amendment, plus attorney generals in 22 states. All three of these groups filed friend of the court briefs opposing Cuomo's Unsafe Act because they see it for what it is. It's a threat to constitutional rights. And oh, by the way, guess who's in deep tapioca? Mr. Cuomo. First of all, he's in the middle of a corruption probe over his ethics commission, the Moreland Commission. He has a persistent challenger in next week's Democrat primary, September 9th. That's Zephyr Teachout, Fordham University law professor. And of all things, a liberal watchdog group called CREW, which stands for Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, has listed Andrew Cuomo as among the worst governors in the U.S. Again, this is a liberal watchdog group. So, we need everyone to have skin in the game. Two things to do, individually, organizationally. Individually, educate yourself and talk to your neighbors. Get them registered to vote. Be a grassroots, like the folks who put together that video voluntarily. So that's individually. Organizationally, join an organization like Shooters Committee on Political Education. Okay, they've got a great website. There's lots of educational tools, including a voter app. We can do this, but as with all great battles, cannot take victory for granted. So keep your guns, change your governor and his allies. And oh, by the way, on the allies, we not only want to cancel Mr. Cuomo's employment contract, but we've got to look at folks who are running for the Senate, the New York State Senate, and the New York State Assembly. For example, in this area, Rich Funke is a candidate for New York State Senate, 55th District, okay? 41 years in broadcasting. Most people know him. Who's he running against? Ted O'Brien. What did Ted O'Brien vote for? The Unsafe Act, okay? So we need to support Rich Funke and many other candidates for the Assembly and the Senate in New York who are willing to protect our freedom. Tim, thanks very much.
Thank you, Mike. I'll tell you, that was excellently put.
Thank you.
I'm very proud to have you on the show. I'm
Thank
very
you.
happy the way you're a good orator, and I didn't mind if you got to watch the video at home. If you're not watching the video, you're really not getting the full punch of Mike Bernard. It's excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
sir.
it. Thanks
Thanks
for
for
having
coming
me.
on the show.
Thank you, Tim.